Hello and welcome everyone to the Jack and Joe show. As Bobby Zamora would say, I'm back. We're both connected
Mhm.
to our phone hotspots and we both got colds, but we've beaten QPR, which is the most important thing in any season in the Championship other than promotion. And Jack, I think you were quite the happy man on Saturday.
Yeah, it was really good actually. Um, Apologies if the Wi-Fi or whatever connection is bad today. For some reason, our Wi-Fi's are both playing up at the same time. But yeah, great game, and an even better Putney pub crawl after the game with Umberto, which was great fun.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like for about 10 minutes in the second half, I know we'll go into the game in more detail. I know you spoke about it on the podcast already. It was at risk of being another dodgy afternoon. It all seemed to go against us for about 10 minutes, but what a response afterwards. And it seems like everything went right. Everything we touched turned to goals. And we're back up to third now in the table. I know that some people still think it's too early to be looking at the table and taking too much from it. But in my opinion, it's always important to be in and around the top two. So, Jack, what did you make of the first half then? Really good start to the game. Really fast start, intense. And then Mitrovic obviously opening the scoring just over 10 minutes in.
Yeah, it was a good start. We wanted to get on the front foot against the QPR team who are decent. You know, they've got some good threats going forward, and at the back they have been quite shaky at times, especially with the back three. Um, and you know what? I felt slightly aggrieved that we went into half time only 1-0 up. I mean,
Yeah,
Mitrovic
yeah.
scored Mitrovic's goal, and it was fantastic. I mean, we talked about it last night on the podcast, but it was a fantastic goal. But from that corner in the first half where Mitrovic head to it, the front post, only the face of Dieng saved it. It was one of those
Yeah.
that it could have been 2-0, and it's very fine margins between it not between it being 1-0 and 2-0. I thought Fulham mainly controlled the game in the first half. That Willock chance was the only real anomaly, and Rodak had to parry one cross as well. I thought we were largely the better team. Reed and Seri just knocking it about quite nicely. Cavallero and Cabano being the main threats down the. Obviously, they were the two wingers. And then when Bobby Reed came on, Bobby D called over Reed. Um, he brought another level to the game, and I was really worried about the fact that he'd played for Jamaica very recently. Robinson, the same with the USA, but actually they were the two subs that came on and basically changed the game for us.
Yeah, they did. I was really surprised that they were involved at all. I mean, I know this was sort of an issue with the Blackpool game a few weeks ago where Ream on that occasion and Robinson both started and both looked quite shaky. Silver obviously chose not to go with them this time round. They came on and they changed the game, and it was almost like a plan B. I know that when QPR equalised, Silver's spoken about how he swapped Bobby Reed and Wilson around. Wilson had obviously been playing in more of a 10 role in the first half, whereas when Bobby came on, he ended up shoving him basically out of possession. It was like two up front, stopping the press, and in possession, it was Bobby behind Mitrovic. Really seemed to work. It's interesting to see if we'll start playing like that from the start of games going forward, especially on Wednesday night. Um, what do you make of Stefan Johansson? Because from a Fulham perspective, it was good to see him. I thought it was a nice, act that he got a nice reception at the corner. I think it would have been a bit different if they'd scored from the corner.
Mm.
That was what was playing in my mind. But as a QPR fan, if you were one, I wouldn't want to see my club captain laughing and joking with the other team's players when you're
Mm.
losing a derby 4-1. I mean, from a Fulham fan perspective, I absolutely love it, and I'm happy that it happened this way round. But it did seem a little bit strange to me. I don't know what you think.
I think if you're a QPR fan who has a bit of common sense, you'd understand the journey that the Hanson's been on at Fulham. I mean, this is not a player who's just come in and played a few games and left after a, a season or so. This is a guy who was integral into one of our
Yeah,
most successful seasons of recent history. Uh, McDonald, Kenny, Johansson trio midfield is iconic under Slavisa Jokanovic. It was the one that basically played the majority of the 17-18 season. It was the one that played and started in the playoff final where we beat Aston Villa. Stefan Johansson coming back to against QPR for QPR against Fulham was always going to be something that I was quite wary of. But
Yeah,
actually, someone tweeted it at the weekend. I can't remember who it was, but I'll give credit to the tweet 'cause it was bang on. It basically underlined that we were right in selling him when we
yeah,
did. Even if he was a starter in our team, I think he's just dropped that yard off in terms of pace and a little bit lethargic. I mean, he's still a good player for the level, but for the team like Fulham who really want to be gunning for automatic promotion, maybe it's someone that we don't actually need at the time. And I think he suits a team like QPR and the way they play. And then he was to get a yellow card, and now he's subsequently
yeah,
suspended for Wednesday night or Tuesday night whenever they play. Classic Stefan Johansson. The whole thing about him laughing and joking with the players is because he's on such good terms with them. I mean, the
yeah,
majority of the players that played on Saturday, he was here like last season. He was here at the back end of last season, so he would know the player, or not back end of last season because we were QPR, but he would have known a lot of those players from his time at Fulham, especially like Simitrovic, Kenny, Tim Ream, Joe Bryan. So I don't. Obviously, if I was a QPR fan, I'd be livid. I'd have a massive issue with it. But I find that even more funny that they have another reason to be upset.
yeah. I thought one thing that Saturday showed was that, QPR have obviously had a decent season. I think right now they sit just outside the playoffs. If they'd have beaten us, they'd have gone above us.
Mm,
A lot of people are expecting them to probably finish in the playoffs. As you said in that chat with James Alcott last week, I know that a few fans are probably starting to expect that now. Um, I think the golfing class that we showed when we really turned it on in the second half is something we need to show more often. This QPR side is decent. It's one of the better teams, especially QPR sides that we played over the last 5 or 6 years. And we really tore them to shreds in the second half. And I think it's something that we
mm,
need to show more often because we should not be settling for third place, which we're in at the moment. We should be going for top two. And I would love to see us play like that more often, where it was, okay, we've got a goal, go for the next one, go for the next one. There's a few times this season I feel like we've just dropped back slightly, and it's not been a big issue. But for example, the Swansea game, first half, we were dominating them. Second half, we almost changed the game plan to just sit back and play on the break. But I would have loved to see us pick them off and score more goals,
mm.
and really boost the goal difference. So on Wednesday night, I'm hoping that we start as we left off and really go for a team that is low on confidence, possibly without a manager by then, but it doesn't seem like it will, which is, to be honest, good news for
Mm.
us at this moment in time. But that period in the second half, Jack, after QPR's goal, which I don't really want to touch on, where we scored 2 goals in about 5 minutes. What did you think of that spell, and what did you like about the way we played?
I like the fact that when we got pegged back, there was a lot of feeling in the ground of here we go again. This is a game that, like I said earlier, we could have been two up at half time. We could have been on top. We could have been far and away, looking towards the victory. And suddenly you're in a situation where it's 1-1 and he's shushing the Johnny Haynes stand, and QPR fans are probably producing the best limbs I've seen at Craven Cottage this season. And you're suddenly thinking, Christ, where's this all gone wrong again? And who's to blame and blah, blah, blah. But, the reaction of the players really pleased me because against Coventry we completely folded. I mean, genuinely a capitulation I've never seen before. Certainly from from Marcus Silva's team, obviously. So where did the second goal come from? It came from sorry, it came from great work from Tosin Adebayo to win the ball back off Rob Dickey.
Yeah,
Not Rob Dickey, of Lyndon Dykes, who was basically going towards. He was almost through on goal basically, but
yeah,
Adebayo did very very well. And then we win the ball back, we play it. And look, this is good. The switch to Cabano opens up that bit of space. And Mitrovic doesn't have to do much, but just get into position ready for a cross. I like the fact that we're looking to get balls into the box, into Mitrovic, because against Swans, that's where the goals came from. Against QPR in the first half, that's where the goal came from. And yet again, Mitrovic proving he is the best striker in the league. He's the best striker the Championship maybe has ever seen. I mean, he's
yeah,
unbelievable. And even that finish, it's difficult because he's not really facing. He's at a weird angle where he has to sort of guide it, and he guides it beautifully, and it just comes off the post and goes into the back of the net. Um, just what a great reaction after, a very frustrating spell where it was 1-1 and I thought QPR were growing into the game a lot more. I like the way that John Michel Seri just stayed calm, played that beautiful ball through to Bobby D Cordova Reed, who finishes it unbelievably well. You know, Bobby Reed has missed a lot of chances this season and actually
Yeah,
previously for Fulham as well. But the way he took that was like he's been scoring 20 a season. It reminded me a lot of the goal he scored against West Brom last season at the Hawthorns. Just well taken. And arguably he should
yeah.
have got a second actually in that game. He hit the post and that game was awful. But yeah, just really, really good reaction from Fulham and something that now gives me a bit of confidence, after being pegged back, we can go on and maybe get the result.
I think that's the thing because the feeling when they equalised was very similar to when Coventry equalised, to when Bristol City equalised, to when Blackpool took the lead or Reading. It was one of those where it was just like almost resigned to, we've had so many chances. How aren't we 3 or 4-0 up? And now we're probably going to drop 2 points. But the reaction of the players was so different this time. And it was really like, QPR didn't have a sniff after they scored. And it was a well taken goal by Lyndon Dykes. I don't really want to touch on it, as I said, but it was a well taken goal, good ball through, taken nicely. So the reaction from the players to just sort of stand up and go, okay, well, we'll now go and score 2 or 3 or 4 was brilliant. And it's something that I was
Mm,
worried about because we've spoken a lot about the reaction of our team recently this season. Can we stand up when it's sort of going against us a bit? And we did that in a big match that we had to win, in my opinion,
mm,
in a derby game. And that's what pleased me a lot. Um, and it does make me think that team that from 1-1, I mean, very unlucky for Joe Bryan, who put his body on the line, but Anthony Robinson coming on and making a great impact. What do you think about the team that should start on Wednesday night then? Do you think that it should be
ooh.
quite similar to the team that ended the game?
Yeah, I think so. Again, like I think Robinson and Bobby D Cordova Reed need a proper good rest. I'm talking like a good 5 days. But as the fixture list is so, you know, chaotic,
Yeah.
fixtures come thick and fast, and you have to stand up and be counted. I think Joe Brown will probably miss the Cardiff game just due to just impact injury, but I think he'll be
Yeah.
fine for Saturday. I think, or Sunday, sorry, against Nottingham Forest. Give him the time to rest, and then you've got maybe Congola come onto the bench, maybe cover left back if need be, because he played for the 23s. I'm not sure if he's ready, but um, what team would I go for? I suppose with Carvalho out, in comes I'd play Bobby Reed. I'd probably play the 11 that finished
Yeah.
actually, or maybe actually I
Yeah.
suppose Chalabar came on for was it Harrison Reed or was it Seri? Might have been
It
Seri.
wasn't Reed. I think it must have been Seri.
Maybe I'd start
Well, in that
Seri.
case, one thing that we haven't talked about, because I think I'm thinking similar to you, that I'd probably play with that team unless anyone else is back from injury, such as Tete, such as Carvalho, which I don't think they will be for Wednesday, maybe for Sunday, as you say.
Mm.
Um, one thing we haven't touched on is Rodak.
Ah,
Rodak coming back into the goal. You would think keeping his place for the foreseeable future, unless he makes a huge clanger at some point. Um, I was very happy to see him on the team sheet, and for the goal, I don't think he could have done much more. I just thought it was well taken. He didn't have too much to do other than a few claims, but he did all those well. I
mm,
felt more reassured with him being in the goal. And I don't know if that's the same for you. I felt more comfortable when the ball was at his feet. And I felt more comfortable when lofted balls were coming into the box that he could dominate the area, the orders that he was barking out to the defenders. I don't want to seem like I'm really anti Gazaniga because I'm not. But I just felt more comfortable. And I don't know whether that's because I'm more used to Rodak being in goal. I've seen him play more games for the club.
mm.
But what did you think of him coming back in? I mean, there's not a lot to judge it on.
I think it was time. I think
Yeah,
given the manner in which some of the goals at Coventry were just horrendous, and Gazaniga was to blame for a lot of it. And um, I think Rodak coming in, it was the correct time to do so. It was basically, well, if you're not going to if you're not going to put Rodak in for this game, then when's Rodak ever going to get a chance in the league?
yeah, that's true.
Um, Made a couple of good saves against Leeds in the cup. Didn't have to make a save against QPR. They only had the one shot on target, which was the goal. I think the Rodak will be tested more against Cardiff if they're going to be physical from set pieces and get the big men up from the back and You got the likes of Moore, and you got Flint, you got Morrison, you got Nelson. So some big aerial threats. But I'm more than happy to have him in. I think Gazaniga had the chance to really cement his place as number one, and because you've got someone so good in Rodak as number two, one mistake and you're out, and that is the ruthless nature of football. And I think that's really healthy that we have those two options, like I said last night. So I'm more than happy for Rodak to play, and I'm looking forward to watching him going forward. I think he's a really, really good keeper who, if we go up, deserves to be. I know
Yeah,
Areola was on a different level, and he should be getting more minutes for West Ham. But Rodak
yeah,
deserves to play Premier League minutes if we go up.
I agree, and it's a good point you make about the Cardiff game being a bit of a bigger test in terms of probably the amount you have to do. We know how Cardiff play. It will be quite similar to how West Brom play in a week and a half as well.
Mm,
So two big physical tests coming up where he's probably going to have a lot of action in the box,
mm.
shots or not. Um, so what are you thinking for this Cardiff game? Because I can't help but feel a tiny bit nervous at how badly they've done for the last 6 games because you know how it goes. They're always going to win a game or draw a game out of nowhere. I'm just hoping it's not this one and that bad run can continue for at least one more game.
Well, first of all, they were terrible yesterday. They played badly.
Yeah,
They had a couple of chances, but once Swansea scored with a wonderful goal from Patterson, they didn't have a sniff. Nelson had a header over the bar from about 4 yards. He probably should have scored. But apart from that, they were poor, and they didn't utilise the threats from throw-ins or set pieces well enough. I felt, and Swansea actually nullified them quite well in midfield because of the amount of men that Cardiff have at the back. When it gets into midfield, they're very, very light. They play a sort of 4-5-1, and they couldn't quite get control of midfield. I thought Matt Grimes, Patterson were fantastic for Swansea. So, what do I expect from this game? I expect that Fulham will dominate the ball. Not dominate 80-20, but I'm talking maybe 70, 65, 35. What I expect is that Cardiff, every time they get a throw in, will just
yeah,
launch it into the
yeah,
box and just try and take advantage of everything. What we've got to do is play our game and try and play North the Park and try and pick them off. We've got players with a lot of pace down each flank. Players like Harry Wilson who can create the pass. They'll know all about Wilson from his time at Cardiff last season. They're there for the taking, but the thing about Mick McCarthy is I'd expected him to be sacked by now. Not. He's still at Cardiff. It's either going to go one of two ways. We're going to win, and that'll be that, and Mick McCarthy's going to go, or Mick McCarthy's going to save his job by getting a big result, a draw or win. We need to win to keep up with the likes of Bournemouth, who at the moment are really annoyingly getting away from everyone,
yeah.
and they're 5 points clear. Bournemouth have a game against Stoke. Is it Stoke? I think in the week, which is a
Stoke.
massive game. Or is it? Yeah. So if Stoke could get a point out of them, we can win. Be like 2 points behind them, which is perfect. Or 3 points behind them. I'm expecting a tough game, and I think it's moments of quality that's going to have to beat Cardiff, like it was on Saturday with moments of quality. And I think that Mitrovic, if he's on song, may get him up against those centre backs, and he's got more of a chance than anyone to score more goals.
Yeah, he's going to be up against 5 centre backs most likely with the way they've been playing
Unbelievable.
recently. I think an early goal wins this game without being too dramatic because it's a team that is rock bottom on confidence. If we could be playing, I think either Barnsley or Cardiff right now, and it'd be the same. Two teams that are really struggling, and
Mm.
mentally, an early goal would hopefully almost win the game in terms of they have to come out of their shell. I think we'd score more than one. I would hope that we wouldn't concede more than one. They've really been struggling for goals recently. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win in this game. I think we'll do it. And as you say, I really hope that Stoke can get something off Bournemouth. Hopefully, can beat them, to be completely honest. And we can
Yeah.
start to claw that gap. West Brom as well, going to Swansea. That won't be an easy game. Swansea played very well yesterday. So I'm interested to see if they can drop points as well. But what do you think the score will be, Jack?
I mean, honestly, if someone put a gun to my head, I'd say 1-1, which is a horrible, horrible result. Um, but it's almost so inevitable, and I need to have a little bit more belief in this Marco Silva team. I think they're just, the likes of Bristol City away, Coventry away, have sort of hindered me as to be like, oh yeah, we can stamp our authority and win this 3-1, 3-0. I'd like to think that we will beat Cardiff, and I think we should beat Cardiff. There's just something about like the way in which they play, some fragilities at the back, just their aerial threats. So I'd say 1-1, but I mean, hopefully we get the job done. Please, please.
Yeah, I'll take any scoreline, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
any way of
I'll
getting
take a
3
1-0
points would
win.
be
Yeah,
me. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, well, yeah. I mean, I guess for more detailed thoughts on the game, you can hear Jack's thoughts on the podcast, um,
That was
which
good
just
fun
came
last
out a
night.
couple of hours ago at the time of filming. I suppose, Jack, we will speak after the Cardiff game
Mm,
and before the Nottingham Forest game, depending on
mm.
the result. And yeah, I mean, I think that wraps it up. Have you got any final thoughts? I mean, from me, it's just I am so relieved, and that is my overriding feeling because I was really nervous about the QPR game. I was thinking it was quite a big, quite a big test, and also a test mentally because after that Coventry game, we all felt rock bottom. You know, it was far worse than any other defeat this season,
Mm,
or any other drop points this season. It really felt like we'd been battered, and everything went
mm.
wrong that day. So to come back and to win in such a convincing manner against your local rivals who are doing quite well in the early game as well, because the rest of the day was just wonderful. Um, just such a relief, but it means nothing if we don't beat Cardiff, in my opinion, because this is 2 games where we needed 6 points. We've got to do the second half of the job on Wednesday night.
Yeah, do you remember when we beat QPR 4-0 and everyone was like, "This is great. We're
Wolves,
having a great." And then 3 days later, Wolverhampton Wanderers at home, 3-0 loss at home, and back down to earth.
yeah,
And that was when we were bad. That's when we were really bad at football. So hopefully, Marco Silva is just going to be like all guns blazing into Cardiff, and hopefully we get a good result against them. Previously against Cardiff, where we played them at home, we beat them 1-0 in the Prem. We drew to them 1-1 uh, uh, in the Championship a few times. 2-2, I seem to remember as well. Session's first goal. And I can't remember the result where we played them
I think it
in
was
the
2-0
Park.
behind closed doors,
Oh, that was right.
um,
Yeah, because that was in lockdown. Yeah.
when
And then we got the playoffs,
yeah,
didn't we? Yeah. So yeah, Cardiff are
yeah,
going to be a big team to play against. It's yeah. In terms of when we next speak, actually, I'm busy on Thursday. So normally, sometimes when we win midweek, or if we win midweek, touch wood, we go live.
yeah,
But I don't think that's going to be possible on Thursday. I've got a thing going on with my girlfriend. Um, so maybe we speak Monday after the next 2 games. So I mean, that is going
yeah,
to be a bit of a different video because there's going to be so much to catch up on.
yeah, and Nottingham Forest, a game that we're both going to, both very excited for,
Mm,
um, and a big test at the moment. They're doing quite well under Steve Cooper, who was obviously linked to the Fulham job. Doesn't sound like there was actually anything to that.
mm,
Big test away from home. It's a big week. Imagine if we could get 9 points from this week, it would be amazing. We've got
yeah.
3. Fingers crossed we can get the other 6.
And I think that West Brom have been slightly unconvincing. The game against Birmingham were very much in the game. It wasn't a good game at all. And it was just that moment of, drop the shoulder and a low shot into the corner by Carlton Grant to win it. Um, Even the game against Peterborough where they scored in the last
Yeah.
minute, West Brom to win. Like I just think like, yes, they're good from set pieces and they've been quite a good threat and they press well and blah, blah, blah. But I'd have to say, and I hate to say it, that Bournemouth have obviously been the standout team this season. They're still unbeaten, and they beat Bristol City quite convincingly at the weekend.
Yeah, at this moment in time, I think that it's Bournemouth and us are the standout teams, and I know that West Brom are above us at the moment, but that is 90 minutes of my life I'll never get back watching that on Friday night. It was terrible. It was 2 very poor teams, in my opinion, and a goal out of nowhere. Great strike from Carlton Grant, don't get me wrong, but, they could have easily dropped points there, and I think if they continue playing like that, they will drop a lot more points than we will this season.
Yeah, I just the only thing that's again, like I said earlier, that's not making me believe in this side 100% is the way in which we capitulated against Coventry. But I
Yeah,
will say we didn't have Tosin, we didn't have Seri. For some reason
yeah.
those two didn't start, and we really struggled. Seri came on, I think, tried to grab a bit of a foothold into the game, but he couldn't quite do it. And I think that Tosin is the rock at the back. He's the man that we need to build this team around in terms of at the back. And I think that I think if Alfie Mawson came in Wednesday night, no one would complain because we need to rotate. Well, it was a conversation we had yesterday. Do we need to rotate the centre backs because of Tim Ream, Alfie Mawson? I just think that Tosin is the mainstay, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think Tosin's the guy that should always be starting on the right hand side, and then it's just a question of who partners him on the left. I mean, when Congolo comes back, that's another
Mm,
name in the equation. Um, right back will obviously be Kenny Tete's place when he's back from injury, which seems close. And then left
mm,
back at the moment, I mean, it's up in the air because Brian was playing very well, in my opinion. He's played well whenever he's played there this season, but Robinson really came on and put a bit of a marker down with his performance. He really carried us forward, and I feel like he was basically the driving force that changed the game in our favour. He swung the momentum. He was
mm,
so positive going forward. So I'm happy with the state of our defence once Tete's back. And then, as you say, I think as long as Tete and Tosin are starting, I'm not as fussy about the left back or who's on the left side next to Tosin at centre back, because I thought Ream had another decent game. Mawson, I would like to see him have another chance on the left-hand side, not the right-hand side where he was against Coventry. And Congolo, when he's back from injury, if he's back from injury, seems to be going on for a long time, then hopefully he can put his hat in the ring as well, because we know that he's played in the Premier League before. He's done
mm,
it. So I'm sure he can do it in the Championship. And I
mm.
think that would be a really positive centre-back pairing for the future, because as good as Ream is, if we get promoted to the Premier League this season, which hopefully we do, would you want him starting games? Because I probably wouldn't. And that's with no disrespect to him. I don't think he can do it at Premier League level with the pace of the game. And he's not getting any younger.
Mm.
In the Championship, I think he can get away with it slightly. In the Premier League, I think those mistakes are very much capitalised on every time.
Well, I think if Crystal Palace go down and we go up, then suddenly we're knocking on the door and going, Joachim, you want to come back and play alongside Tosin again, and I think that's something that's a foundation to build on. But Marcus will have his own ideas, and that is a conversation we shouldn't even mention right now. We're not even in any state to it's so early on anyway. And of course, Tom Kearney back on the bench as well, which is great to
Yes.
see. So can I just quickly ask you, what was it like watching the game at home? I know you couldn't go to the game because you were ill. So what was it like
Yeah.
watching it at home?
I, yeah, I couldn't make it to the game because I was feeling quite rough. And you might be able to still hear it in my voice. So firstly, I was gutted to not be there.
Mm,
The the atmosphere, I guess, is one thing I should come on to. In the first half, it sounded very quiet all around the ground. And from experience, I can imagine that in the ground, it wasn't, in terms of in the Hammersmith end. I'm sure that it was
it was all
okay.
right. Yeah.
In the second half, once we got going, the atmosphere came through. So the scenes behind the goal looked good. The angle of the TV threw me a few times in terms of I thought Mitrovic's first half deflected strike was going in.
Mm,
If I was at the ground, probably wouldn't have thought so.
mm,
Um, it was good to be behind the exact angle that Mitrovic's header went in the second half, because
mm.
when the cross first came in, like my split second reaction was he's too far out.
Yeah.
That head is not going to make it in. Such good quality. But yeah, my main takeaway is always prefer watching in the stadiums. But the new angle is fantastic at Craven Cottage. So much better. You don't feel like you're going to fall off the face of the earth every time it's down the near touchline
Mm,
anymore. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and it seemed like a decent atmosphere in the second half. I loved the flags. Um, as the teams were coming out. I think it makes the Hammersmith end look fantastic, and I'd love to see that at every game. It looked like just a black and white sort of mosaic with loads of flags, so it was great. But yeah, it would have been better to be there, but I should be at the game on Wednesday.
Brilliant. Wednesday night. I'm actually I've actually got my graduation, like genuinely
Oh,
graduating from university on Wednesday. So it's a quick graduation and then off to Craven
then
Cottage
the main event, yeah.
for Cardiff. Yeah, that is the main event. Golden Lion and then of course the game. Apologies if the connection's been a little bit down. We've both been using hotspots. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi, and then yours is obviously down as well. So if it's not been the most clear-cut, crystallized 1080 HP, whatever it's called, connection and viewing experience, we can only apologize. These things happen. But hopefully you've stuck with us for a half an hour. Goodness me. Well, there's been lots to talk about, Joe, and I suppose we probably will speak next Monday after another 2 games.
Yeah, so fingers crossed we're in a good position then. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, Jack. See you next week.
There's always the River Trent, or whatever it's called, to jump into if it doesn't go well at Nottingham. Forget the River Thames. Right. So we'll see you. We'll see you on Monday, guys. Thanks very much for watching. We're really near 4,000 subscribers, so if you're not subscribed, please click the subscribe button. That would majorly help us out. And we hope, oh Christ, I hope you'll have a good week. We'll see you at the Craven Cottage on Wednesday night.